hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling and flare. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Happy to be back alive and well on this Monday, May 22nd, 2017, in possibly one of the most interesting moments in world history. And to break down these crazy, interesting times, we're going to be having a panel of commentators on this evening who have expertise in various fields. First of all, our expert on the extremely strange, DB Schwartz. What's up, man? How you doing tonight?
What can you say, man? I think what's going on in Manchester right now is it's ironic. It happens after we, meaning us, the U.S., signs the largest arms deal ever to a place where a lot of crazy people come out of, dude. It's like we're feeding this perpetual cycle and then going and begging the same arms dealers to protect us from the people they just sold arms to. We're the definition of insanity as far as Western civilization goes. We're actually paying our captors.
I was actually just going to say that. Literal insanity. That's the U.S. policy on foreign policy. Literal insanity. And domestic policy too, because we elect a Democrat, and then we say, well, Democrats suck. Well, let's elect a Republican, and then we're like, oh shit, Republicans suck. Let's elect a Democrat, and then we're like, damn, Democrats suck. Let's elect a Republican, like really hard this time.
Vote hard. It always works.
And then it's like, damn, I voted so damn hard, and nothing changes. It seems like maybe there's something else going on here that maybe voting isn't going to fix. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. This apparently what they're now calling a terror attack in Manchester over in England. That is sure to be big news all day, all night, and tomorrow. Of course, everybody is going to be jumping to conclusions like they always do, where it's like, oh, it's the Muslims that did it. No, it's a terrorist, or no, let's not jump to conclusions, or let's ban Muslims, and let's the same old. Let's start bombing countries over this. This is the
well, it's just the latest boogeyman, except this one there's 1.6 billion followers, so that's really setting something up for fun, right?
Yeah, convenient, right? And on the other side of the equation here too is, let's not go all Alex Jones on this and say, oh, it's a false flag, without having evidence. Look, whenever you're going to present something as fact, you got to have evidence. I saw so many people on my feed already because, I got a bunch of friends who are conspiracy theorists, nothing against them. Because as we all know, There's plenty of conspiracies that are completely true. But if you're going to make a claim, you got to provide evidence. And if the moment a terrorist attack happens, you can't say, "Oh, it's a false flag. It's crisis actors and shit." Where is your damn evidence? You look just as bad as Washington Post saying, "Oh, Russia did this and Russia did that," without giving any evidence. We need evidence, or none of this stuff, none of it matters without evidence. So, just throwing that out there. We don't know what happened yet. Apparently there was some kind of nail bomb at the Ariana Grande concert. I don't know. Is she Latina? I don't know if her last name is
She's
Grande.
Disney, man. She transcends race, nation, and borders, man.
Her music is actually not that bad. In fact, she's got some anti-establishment songs, which I'm kind of a fan of. Anyway, that being said, welcome Jake Anderson, one of our amazing journalists, to the show. What's up, Jake? How you doing tonight, man?
Pretty good. Just got back from a big old weird UFO festival. And, it's interesting, even with the very fringe of the fringe, the major conversations that keep coming back over and over are the deep state and the media controlling the narrative. There is a growing awareness of what's going on, and it's overshadowing the biggest conspiracies. Virtually every speech I heard mentioned it. So it's taking over the fringe, it's taking over the mainstream. And yeah, you're right. Just as many people probably came right out and called this a false flag as people called it terrorists. I mean, but that's it's I don't want to applaud it. It certainly should have evidence before you claim things. However, I do think that's a interesting barometer to use to see how many people immediately assume that black ops operated by an unelected cabal of people immediately assume they're responsible for the terrorist attack as opposed to actual terrorists. And without doubt, there are actual terrorists and there are actual false flags. I mean, these are proven.
Why would there not be?
Both of those statements are true.
Why would there not be organic terrorism from empire? That's always
absolutely. There's going to be organic terrorism, and there's definitely false flags that are going on. One of the people I spoke to at this conference, Richard Dolan, is really kind of almost too academic to be writing about UFOs, in my opinion. Because he's literally working on a book. He's been working on it for 3 years, and I'm gonna have him on the show actually when he comes out with the book. But he's been tracing it for 3 years, and it's certainly a phenomenon that we need to start looking at how the two are intermingling. He says there are signs that we can spot, regarding whether is there an immediate propaganda, immediate consolidated answer and message that comes out from the media directly following the attack. And there's all kinds of ways we can start looking about it. So it's kind of like a tool by which we can start assessing, how the media covers something and whether that means something. But yeah, I mean, in general, I'm pretty depressed right now just because people are so combative online, and just in general, there's so much anxiety. This is definitely an inflection point in history of some kind.
We're in a really rough patch here, and I know a lot of people, including many of them on our team, many activists I know, many of the, even the, most positive people, dude, are having a tough time coping with this alternate reality going on here, where the everything is backwards, and Donald Trump is fighting against terrorism by sealing the largest arms deal with the single largest state sponsor of terrorism. That's how we're going to fight terrorism, right? I mean, we're living in an alternate reality. And yeah, back to this terror attack in England. I think the more important question here is the narrative that comes out after the attack, because, of course, there's going to be a unified narrative, and it's going to be more and more of justifying the war on terror. More and more of this, we got to bulk up the military-industrial complex so we can keep fighting a perpetual war that's never going to end. And we're fighting against a tactic that you can't defeat. In fact, the more you try to fight against terrorism, the more terrorism actually happens, which is now documented by the fact that terrorism has increased, 6,500% since 9/11 and since the U.S. decided to wage war on terrorism. So, the more you fight it, the more it comes out and the more it hits you.
And that's the whole point of it, because it creates ideological opportunism. It allows they can sit there and just let the terror. I mean, it sounds really morbid, but these terrorists, as long as we're bombing countries in the Middle East and signing deals with people who harbor some of the most extremist groups in the world, what do people expect? What do people think is going to happen? And Donald Trump, who's sitting there coming up with travel bans against countries that are going to be bombed by the country he just signed $110 billion of arms over to. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It's just business, Jake. Come on.
9D chess, his supporters are saying.
Yeah.
Hey, this is good for the economy, because think of the bribes.
Nobody has more respect for bribes than Donald Trump. Joining us to talk about this, our resident geopolitical expert on the Middle East, Darius Shatamasivi, journalist with the Anti-Media. How you doing tonight, Darius?
Hey, good, thanks. Hey, Nick. Hey, Jake. Hey, DB.
Hey, man.
Yeah, I sort of agree with your guys' sentiments. I sort of had an off day today. I got into a sort of this Donald Trump supporter sort of just outright attacked me online, and then earlier today I wrote that piece regarding Trump and Saudi Arabia and Iran, and then I guess I had it all on my mind, and I thought I'd lost my credit card. I spent an hour looking for it, went to the bank to sign for a new one, and then I found it was in my wallet. And then just as I looked, there's a big TV screen with the Ariana Grande, massacre, I guess, and that kind of sums up what's been going on. It's very, very distressing.
We're getting inundated here, bro. Inundated with just negativity and just alternate reality stuff. I mean, it's we talked about this, I think, last show, where there's that one super smart kid over here in the U.S. was saying that maybe the CERN, that project they're working on where they're colliding atoms together to try to find out more about the nature of the universe. There's this really smart kid who has this theory that maybe the CERN thing put us into this alternate reality, and that's why Donald Trump is president, and that's why everything is backwards and everything is so strange. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a possibility. Maybe I'm just looking for an excuse for the fact that this world is very strange and very backwards, and we're dealing with some people who are very ignorant, reactionary, and it could get to you. It could really get to you, and it gets to me, man. Like, I for a long time I've had this thick skin, and I've been dealing with trolls nonstop for about 5 years. And just troll after troll after troll. And I used to take pride in my ability to take care of the trolls. But now I've realized that there's just so many dumb, idiotic people out there that it's hard to cope with the fact that, it's hard to cope with the fact that we're taking an independent look at things, and we're not falling into the left or the right divide or the trap, because it's so easy to fall into. And it's kind of traumatic to be able to be trying to take a middle road here and not fall victim to this kind of divide and conquer thing, and seeing it as an observer, and just seeing what's going on. It's kind of hard. It's really tough, and it makes you I don't know, man. Like I get a little sad here and there seeing the state of humanity and what people are doing. But anyway, back to this topic, because the narrative is obviously going to come out. It's terrorism. I'm sure it's going to be pinned on some Muslim guy, and they're going to probably, ISIS, I'm guessing, is going to take credit for it, and then, Trump is going to be over there in Israel, and he's going to be like, well, this is why, this is exactly why I'm over here, so that we can, fight against terrorism. Well, he's meeting up with Israeli leadership right now. He was with Benjamin Netanyahu earlier today. He just got done sealing a giant deal, biggest arms deal in U.S. history with Saudi Arabia, who are basically the people behind ISIS. And Darius, you write about this on a regular basis with the anti-media because, this is part of this alternate reality where, our relationship with Saudi Arabia is supposedly somehow conductive of, generating peace in the Middle East and somehow conductive of fighting against terrorism. But unfortunately, that couldn't be any further from the truth. I mean, what do you make, Darius, of this trip and this arms deal and this relationship with Trump and Saudi Arabia? I want to talk a little further after you give us your take on this about some of the repercussions here back at home in the U.S. But I mean, what do you make of what Trump has done, what he just got done doing over in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I guess the optimistic way of looking at it is that it's just hyping up fear and securing these kinds of deals because on the one side, you've got, the big arms deal, which is obviously what Saudi Arabia wants. They want to keep on doing whatever they want to be doing in Yemen and trying to sort of buffer Iranian influence. And also on the other side, Trump is getting deals of his own. And because I think at the very end of this, I don't know if it was the end of the speech, but he says, thank you for investing in American, they invested I'm not sure if the exact number, but I think 450 billion or something will be going back into the US. So, that's quite telling on its own, really. But, at the same time, where is this headed if we're just going to keep, unleashing war crimes in Yemen? And so if you look at the Donald Trump speech on Islam, what did that have to do with it? What did that have to do with radical Islam? Forget Islam. He's talking to the most radical nations on earth. And then just the speech was just riddled with mentions of Iran. And that's what it comes down to. And so one thing I wanted to clarify in my article that we published today, I said that he made the whole Iranian nuclear thing has been it's just gone from the conversation because now they're saying, Iran's destabilizing the region and the biggest sponsor of terrorism. But then I after publishing the article, then I turned my attention to, it's so hard to keep up. Now he's in Israel meeting Netanyahu, and now they're talking again about the nuclear threat, saying, Iran can never have nuclear weapons. But I explicitly wrote in my article that the nuclear threat has gone. And then suddenly he's back in Israel. And I think it speaks volumes to me because if, with Saudi Arabia, they're concerned with, Syria and Yemen and things. And then with Israel, they've got the sort of overhyping this imaginary nuclear threat. That's all they can sort of rely on. And it's just propaganda. And if the nuclear threat was real, why weren't they talking about it in Saudi Arabia to 55 majority Muslim nations who clearly oppose Iran on some level? So that's one aspect of it. And I think the sort of military pact that they signed with the intention of going into Iraq and Syria, especially considering I was just reading those Iranian-backed troops in Syria. The reason that they got struck by the U.S. military, they're actually launching an offensive. So, they have no intention of stepping aside and letting the U.S. take that region, that crossing. So, if all these Saudi Arabia and everyone's involved too, I think that's where we're headed to, and I don't see any good coming out of it.
It looks like there's a major clash on the horizon here, lining up between, of course, the Russian-aligned alliance and the U.S.-aligned alliance, of course, which would make up Saudi Arabia and the Sunni states, and then, Russia, Iran, and the Shia-aligned states, which would include Syria, and I guess to a lesser extent, North Korea is kind of also a lightning rod of tension over there. And so we're now, this arms deal is going to give Saudi Arabia the tools to go and just slaughter who knows how many more people and continue their losing battle because, Saudi Arabia keeps losing. They can't even beat Yemen. I mean, Yemen is the poorest country on earth. It's a small country. It's right up on the Saudi border, and they can't beat a ragtag band of rebels.
Well, don't forget though, like it is just a proxy for Iran, and unfortunately they're using it as a battleground. So it truly is the Persian Empire versus our lackeys.
Yeah, I mean it's a battle that Saudi Arabia just can't win because they're fighting they're an inorganic force. It's kind of like the U.S. When the U.S. goes over into Iraq and into places around the world and they fight, well, there's organic resistance, and organic resistance is always stronger than a manufactured resistance. And
mercenaries certainly don't fight hard, and they fight dirty, which means that the populations never support them. So I don't know what Saudi Arabia thinks it's doing. It's never going to occupy Yemen. I mean, all they're doing really is just fanning the flames at this point.
Have you considered that maybe the purpose is not to win?
Well, yeah, it is. It's to escalate it into Iran doing something stupid, and then they can destroy each other.
The funny thing is that I was reading today, a former UK ambassador was saying that if Saudi Arabia sent its troops to Syria, they would be more scared of them defecting to ISIS anyway. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing they'd be looking at.
No doubt. So
that's kind of horrifying, though, too, because didn't we just give them like 150 billion?
Yeah, right.
110, but who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting? And
maybe it is 150. I don't know.
No, but I'm talking about the cash payment Obama made to the Iranian government before he left.
I think he paid that in Bitcoin. So
it was totally in cash, dude. It was like $100 bills. Can you imagine how many pallets they had to
small bills
airlift?
The thing about that was that was just a repatriation of Iranian assets. It wasn't like, we're paying them off. We're just giving them their stuff back.
Yeah, and then they just gave us back that Navy crew. It was an even trade.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. Like, we are arming up these guys who are trying to bring about some like end times scenarios. I feel like, and so we make these posts today. I mean, if you guys follow our Facebook page, and whoever's listening today follows our website, you'll see that it's a bunch of stuff all over the place about Saudi Arabia and Trump. Well, first of all, this is a prime attack point for us with Trump, because Trump, first of all, throughout the campaign was talking all kinds of shit about Saudi Arabia and how Saudi Arabia had Hillary Clinton in their pocket, which I'm not disputing at all. And so we're coming out and we're really trying to drive this point home, because this is where we can separate Trump's alt-right base from his neocon campaign, or his neocon presidency, which is what it's become. Because the alt-right, for all their faults and stuff, at the very least, they're at least somewhat anti-intervention, and they do not like Saudi Arabia, and they don't like Israel. Maybe part of it is because of racism. Maybe part of it is because they don't want us giving away our money to Israel for nothing. But, we're going to be attacking this point, because this is where we can help Trump's alt-right base come to realize, like, oh shit, yeah, Trump isn't the guy who we thought he was. He during the campaign, he talked all kinds of shit about Saudi Arabia and how Saudi Arabia had Hillary Clinton in their pocket. And the thing that does bother me is that when we come out and we talk, we put this stuff out there, people are like, well, where were you when Obama was funding the Saudis and giving them arms and stuff? Well, we were right here. We were exposing the fact that Obama had hypocritical policies when it comes to Saudi Arabia, and that Obama was Obama cut more arms deals with the Saudis than any president before him, more than George Bush. And so Obama was no saint. Obama sold a bunch of arms to the Saudis, and he looked the other way. Obama offered support for the Yemen campaign. Obama exacerbated the issue in Syria, which of course is being led and spearheaded by Saudi Arabia and ISIS, which is the Saudi proxy army. And so Trump, for all of his anti-terrorism, and I'm going to be tough on radical Islamic terror. Well, first of all, he didn't even say it. You remember when Trump in the debates, he's like, well, one of my policies is that I would actually say radical Islamic terror. It's like, oh, wow, that's a great policy because you actually say radical Islamic terror. That's totally a great policy, right? He didn't even say it. He backed out of saying it when he was over there in Saudi Arabia. He changed up his rhetoric because he knows that he can't be going around saying that shit around the Saudis because he knows what that they control so much influence in our government and throughout that whole region. So Trump changed up his tone. Now he's over there cutting deals with the Saudis. His base does not like that. And for all the mental gymnastics that a lot of these guys are doing, where they're like, well, at least Trump didn't bow to the Saudi king like Obama did. It's like, yeah, even worse. He curtsied. Did you guys see that? He curtsied.
Yeah.
But he did a hell of a sword dance, Nick.
What?
He did a hell of a sword dance, though.
I mean, you know what, dude? Those guys, they have their culture over there and fine. But,
dude, what kind of disgusting shenanigans did he get into over there?
Man, I don't. Did you guys see that video of Bannon? Did you see Bannon over there looking like scared as shit?
Yeah. Yeah, he looked like he was about to get punched in the face by one of the Saudi kings.
Well, because Bannon knows that it's political suicide to go over there for their base anyway. I mean, Washington Post and all the establishment is eating it up. They're like, oh yeah, they love that Trump's going over there and schmoozing with those guys. But Bannon has his finger on the pulse of the base of the alt-right, and Bannon knows damn well that that's political suicide. Like, Trump is not, barring any kind of major, 9/11 style terror attack, there's no way in hell Trump wins re-election.
What about a political 9/11 that is Seth Rich that's going to take down the DNC down to its core and destroy it?
You underestimate the media, man. You underestimate.
No.
The deep state will bury the deep state will bury this just like they buried Pizzagate.
They're going to have to kill Sean Hannity. You said
that within days of Trump getting elected that there were going to be people being wheeled out of the Congress with their hands behind their backs in handcuffs. Man, they have a way of stopping this stuff, man. It's obvious that they have control over the narrative, man.
Yeah, the Seth Rich stuff, I mean, it came right under the gun. All the regular players came out against it. CNN with their debunk, and Washington Post talking about, oh, this is how fake news spreads. And yet they want us to take their word for it on the the Russia did everything scandal. Anyway, which is still no evidence provided. And sure, I'm not going to deny this. There is definitely corrupt ties between some of Trump's advisors, especially Flynn. He had ties with Russian oligarchs, and that I believe is probably true. There's some corrupt shit going on over there on that side of things. But did Russia place Trump in office? No, he didn't, because there'd be proof. There'd be proof offered up, and they'd impeach Trump right away. Because if they had the evidence, they would have already done it. They're not. They're using it just as a tool to control Trump and get him to not pursue any kind of cooperation with Russia, because they need Russia as a boogeyman so that they can keep building up the military-industrial complex. Anyway, let's not get off.
Let me just annotate what I said real quick. I totally agree with DB that it should be the bigger issue.
I think there's something there with Seth Rich, man. I think there is.
My thing is this, dude. Like, I don't think Trump has any. I think it's in the bag for real. I'm telling you, it's going to destroy them. Like, the DNC base is gone. It's gone. It is gone, man. now that everyone realizes without a shadow of a doubt that Bernie would have won, that Bernie would have been superior to either candidate, and that we basically have shot ourselves in the head. In spite, you know what I mean? Dude, there's no coming back from this last election. I'm sorry.
I hope you're right more than anything in the world, man. Now, I don't put anything past what they're able to cover up at this point.
I just read that the DNC had its worst fundraising month last month since 2009. And that's pretty telling considering that Trump is the president. And everyone's like, you would think the Democrats would be kicking ass right now, uniting and getting all kinds of momentum going to be, with their anti-Trump bullshit. But they're not, because the Democratic Party is in shambles. They're in deep shit because of, like you said, DB, what they did to Bernie Sanders, and it's still coming to light with the Seth Rich stuff. Who knows what's going to happen with that? We reported on the dude from the dude that made the comments, the investigator to Fox News. Later on that same day, he walked back the comments, said they were taken out of context, and so now Kim, what's his name, Kim.com is now getting involved. Who knows? That guy is not the most credible either. We'll see where this thing falls. Scandal this big, I agree with Jake here. I don't know if it'll be allowed to see the light of day. But we'll see. We'll find out. If it does, then maybe that'll be a good thing. If it doesn't, well, then it doesn't. But before we get too far off topic, I want to bring Darius back in on this because, Darius, you got a great article today about Trump's speech. But I guess the bigger issue here, not just that Trump signed this huge, massive deal with Saudi Arabia, which, like I said, is going to destroy his support from his base because his base is like, no, this does not fly. And the fact that he's over there with Netanyahu, and who knows how much money he's going to give them for free, billions and billions of dollars, so that they can give their people free education and universal health care and all the things that people here in this country would like to have. Israel has them off of our backs. But I think one big thing that people kind of missed, and that Darius wrote about, we published today, is how anti-Iran Trump's speech and rhetoric is. And obviously, if we're upping our partnership with Saudi Arabia and their arch rival is Iran, this tells us that we're headed into a big time conflict with Iran. And Trump ran on an anti-Iranian platform. And so, Darius, what do you think we are going to see coming soon between the United States and Iran?
I think that because if you look since the Bush administration, war against Iran has kind of been on the table for a while, but I think the longer it pursues and the longer that that Iran doesn't have nukes, and we've got now they've twice elected the reformist who actually wants to cut deals with the U.S. The longer it goes on, it's incredibly hard for the United States to justify an all-out strike on Iran. So I think that's why we're looking at these kind of, in this context, perhaps Saudi Arabia is more of a proxy for the United States. If the United States is really that hell-bent on taking out the Iranian government, which Donald Trump just was raving on about how bad Iran is, and so, and the way to do that is through Syria, and right now you've got Iranian sort of allied troops who are marching towards a U.S. base, and if you can sort of get other people involved to fight it for you, or at least to sort of draw in the rationale for the war, as in, we were attacked by these Iranian troops and that kind of thing. But just what you guys were talking about then, I actually didn't know Bannon was in Saudi Arabia. That's kind of, I think he would have found that hard.
So look at this video of Bannon in Saudi Arabia. It's the most nervous you ever see the guy. It's just, you can see it on his face. He's just like, holy shit, I should not be here. We should not be here. What in the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, I think, and it's so, I'm not sure because, what you guys were saying is, I think what really happens, what's really happening right now is that both sides are sort of crumbling in a way, But I think the reason we don't really see it as obvious is the way the media is still controlling everything. Like, say if the media was reporting the way we report, then I think you would just see kind of almost like anarchy. Everyone would be quite aware that, I mean, like you said about the DNC, I think even if the Seth Rich thing doesn't get any momentum, they've kind of lost a lot of credibility, and they lost. They lost the last election quite drastically, and with Trump, I'm still trying to figure out how Trump supporters feel about the Saudi Arabia thing, because there's a guy I was following on Twitter. He's got a lot of followers. I'm not sure if he followed me first or how it came about, but he's this kind of he's like the Milo protege, and he's like, hashtag gays for Trump, and Clinton takes money from Saudi Arabia, who executes gays like me. These were the kinds of things he was saying, and now there a lot of, and this is why I got into an argument with this other guy. I mean, they've gone from being the most Islamophobic people I've ever seen, like, inciting like fights with Muslims, to welcoming, like, praising Saudi Arabia. And I'm telling you guys, Saudi Arabia is responsible for all the things you said you hated, and they don't want to hear it. So I'm not sure at what extent Trump will lose that base, but I think that the true nationalists, like people like Bannon, and I was really surprised when you guys said that Bannon was over there. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, he was looking around. There's a GIF going around of him looking around like he's really high, like uncomfortably high, like when you're so high that you're like paranoid when someone walks up to you. There's a Saudi king walking up to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, oh hey," it's really awkward.
He said it was really, really weird too, because like he would try to get people to like pick him up in Uber or Lyft or whatever over there, and just nobody would.
What?
Did he actually say? Did he say that?
Yeah, like he literally couldn't get a ride around because like everyone knows him and just hates his face.
That's via an intelligence source, right?
Yeah, anonymous.
That was WAPO, I think.
Government officials tell the Washington Post that he couldn't get an Uber.
Yeah.
I feel like Bannon's one of those guys who's just never actually sat down and talked to like a Muslim or a brown person in his life, and then he's sitting there in Saudi Arabia like, oh my God, what I could get blown up any minute kind
of. Oh man, yeah. So the other thing is we're on a war path with Iran, it definitely seems. Ivanka Trump is over there praising the Saudi and Melania Trump. They're praising the Saudi treatment of women. Women aren't even allowed to drive over there. Like, I don't even think they could vote. And so what are they? I mean, again, it goes back to this frustration I have with alternate reality. Where these people can go over there and they can say these kind of things, say, oh, we really appreciate how Saudi Arabia treats women. And it's like, wait, they really said that? And wait, people really believe it too? It's like, what in the world is going on here? Like, are we living in some kind of Twilight Zone? Some kind of like fake shit? Like, what is this? Like, how do people get away with saying this kind of stuff? Like, it's so crazy. Like, I don't know. Are they just trying to test us to see how stupid we are? Like, are they trying to see how far they can push it? Yeah, I mean, Trump makes shit up like all the time too. Like, Trump just makes things up. And you look back during the Obama administration, and again, those who have been listening to us for the last 4 years know damn well that we've been criticizing the shit out of Obama, and we continued criticizing the executive branch when Trump took over. But Obama didn't go around just making shit up like every single day. Like, Obama was relatively factual, and sure, he was a propagandist and a warmonger, but he was much more cool about it and much more factual about it.
And attractive.
Yeah, he's a looking guy too. But Trump can literally go around making shit up And his supporters are like, oh, fake news. If you criticize him, it's just fake news. Like, are they trying to just test us and see how dumb we are? Or just trying to push us to see how far they can, like, how much they can actually get away with before anyone finally, like, before people finally take up arms and say, you know what, screw it. This is enough. Like, we can't take this bullshit any longer. You know, and similarly on the left, the guys here in San Diego, where, you know, the anti-media is headquartered at, they're protesting in favor of Comey. Like, when Comey got fired, they were marching for Comey. Left
Comey's my homie.
Activists. The FBI, the notorious enemy of the left, the notorious enemy that deconstructed the anti-war movement in the 70s. I mean, who is the famous FBI guy? Hoover, right? J. Edgar Hoover, the biggest asshole ever. And these guys are out here protesting in favor of the FBI here in San Diego, my hometown. I'm embarrassed. I saw that. It was on CNN because there was very little local coverage. It's funny because there's very little local coverage on it. None of my activist local friends knew about it, but yet it was on CNN. And I was embarrassed. I'm like, how can my people from my hometown be out here marching for James Comey? You guys were the same people, because, again, these are Democrats marching. The same people were saying Comey cost Hillary Clinton the election because of the whole FBI announcement and all that stuff. It's embarrassing. And so not only is so on the right, you got people believing in a fictional reality where it's like, yeah, Donald Trump is great and he's stopping terrorism, even though he's cutting the largest arms deals ever with the largest supporters of terrorism ever. You got people on the left doing mental gymnastics here, marching in favor of the FBI. And on tax day, they went out and held a protest to get Trump to release his tax returns. I mean, these guys are like literally out here spinning their wheels. And so the whole country, I feel, is just in complete disarray. Now, the only thing that isn't in disarray right now is the neoconservative foreign policy. The only thing that continues functioning like a well-oiled machine is the empire. That's it. Everything else, look, politically, the country is all split apart. The alt-right and the anti-fascists are out there beating each other over the head. They're ready to kill each other. They're ready. It's only a matter of time till a guy gets killed. The guy already got shot.
Dude, and Nick, you know what the irony is, and I want to write about this, is these two sides agree on the war issue. The biggest issue, I think, that a lot of people would agree with, which is the United States war empire, is opposed by both the Antifa and the alt-right, the radical left and the alt-right. They both agree overwhelmingly on that issue, and yet they can't unite.
Yeah, because
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's, in my opinion, you know, at least partially by design. They've been neutralized. They've been neutralized. They've been neutered. And even us in the libertarian movement, the anarchist movement, the radical political movements here in the United States, we're too busy fighting over little bullshit, and, you know, no one can get their shit together. But again, politically speaking, look, the Democrats are falling apart. The Republicans are eating each other alive. Donald Trump is mired in scandal. The only thing he can do is continue the wars. And that's the only thing that gets him any praise in the media. That's the only thing they lay off of him. You know, they don't give him any heat. I haven't seen Washington Post criticizing his deal with Saudi Arabia. I haven't seen the New York Times criticizing it. Everybody knows that Saudi Arabia was behind 9/11. Everybody knows that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, everyone knows that these are the guys that are behind ISIS. Everyone knows that these are the guys that are behind Al-Qaeda. But everyone gives the guy a pass when he goes around arming these people. And so, it's pretty obvious what's going on here is that, the country gets divided and conquered on social issues. And the one issue that is untouchable by the media, untouchable by the political candidates, by the politicians, is the empire. And anybody that steps out of line, for instance, Rand Paul and Tulsi Gabbard, which are just two of the most, maybe the two prime examples of people on the left and the right who would stand up to this, empire stuff. They get ostracized. I mean, the Democrats are calling for Tulsi Gabbard to get primaried. They're calling for another Democrat to run against her, to beat her, because she stands up against the empire. And so I think the Democratic Party now, after Obama, has fully come out in support of the empire, and they're no longer in the slightest bit anti-war, except for, maybe the fringe elements of the party like Tulsi Gabbard and, a handful of other lawmakers. And then, of course, on the right, you got Rand Paul and a handful of other guys. Maybe 2-3% of the lawmakers in this country are actually critical of the war, or at least they want it to go through the proper channels, which would be like, okay, let's get a declaration of war through Congress, and if we're going to go to war, let Congress vote on it, and let's actually go to war. Instead, you got all this executive branch kind of war-making stuff going on, and the media never touches on it, and yet they come around with this, oh, Russia did this and Russia did that, and we don't have any evidence, but an anonymous official tells Washington Post that, Russia did this and Russia did that, and, Russia is hiding under your bed at night, and Russia doesn't like your grandma and hates kittens, and, Russia kills puppies. So that's all we hear. That's all we hear. Trump's over there making the biggest arms deals ever, and nobody cares, and he's over there supporting Israel, who is causing a bunch of shit over in the Middle East, and nobody cares. The media doesn't care. I think his base cares, his true base, the people who aren't just mouthpieces for Donald Trump, the people who are genuinely alt-right people who actually have somewhat of a principled stand, regardless, yeah, sure, they may be racist, they may be Islamophobic, they may be intolerant, but at least they're like, you know what, screw that, we don't want to be arming Saudi Arabia, because we all know that they're the ones behind radical Islamic terrorism, and we don't want to be giving away our money for free to Israel. Maybe those people, I think, will start coming around and say, okay, this kind of, what would you call it? It's like that when you get a new car and it's like, oh, cool, I got this new car, but then a month later you're like, okay, yeah, it's just a car. And that, I think, hopefully that's what's going to be happening with Trump, because we need to separate him from his base, because Trump so far has not done anything of substance different than Obama did. Trump is carrying on the legacy of Obama of just propping up, bad elements around the world and giving away our money and giving arms to bad actors. And so, hopefully his base is able to snap out of it. I personally saw people in my newsfeed today who are alt-right people, who are like seeing what's going on with, us arming the Saudis, and they're like, holy shit, I can't believe Donald Trump is arming the Saudis. This is why we voted against Hillary Clinton, because, we didn't want her doing all this stuff. Well, it's happening. Trump is arming the Saudis, and they're the ones arming ISIS. So, it is what it is. Hopefully people can see this news and believe it, because it's as real as anything. Donald Trump is arming the shit out of the people who are arming the shit out of ISIS. Man. Anyway, Darius, I want to go back to you, man, because we don't have you on too often, but you've got a lot of great foreign policy insights, and of course that's the biggest topic, I think, as Jake was saying, that people can actually agree with, regardless of their political, ideologies and opinions. People can agree on, the foreign policy stuff because it's costly and it leads to more terrorism and a bunch of innocent people die. What do you think people should be looking at this coming week on foreign policy, because a lot of stuff is happening. Trump's in the Middle East right now, but North Korea is still an issue. And I mean, what do you think is going to happen next on with this Western foreign policy?
Yeah. So can I just say before I answer that what you were saying about separating Trump from his support base and the sort of the differences with Obama. One of the things you might have to be aware of is that, in a way, Trump is trying to distance himself from Obama because, and I find this is to be one of the really warped parts of this sort of news narrative, is that, well, Obama ruined the relationship with the Saudis, or he ruined the relationship with Israel, like, with the UN vote before he left office, where they didn't veto that Security Council resolution condemning the settlements. And so Trump saying, Obama was bowing down to Iran. I'm going to go over there and please our allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel. And I think that might be one of the things that his support base is hanging on to. Like he's bonding with our, I guess, traditional allies. And the reason I find it warped is the idea that Obama didn't do enough. I mean, he armed Saudi Arabia like at least 115 billion. And the one he gave to Israel was a historical, like, record package, and then Israel, Israel feels abandoned. I mean, what abandoned? I'm abandoned. I didn't get 36 billion or whatever it was. So, in terms of what to follow, I'm trying to keep an eye on this particular location in Syria, the Al Tanf. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the border crossing. Because the reason that these are sort of Iranian troops involved, or not, and I don't mean they're formal Iranian troops, but they're troops who are aligned with Iran and backed by Iran. They're the sort of those Shia militia.
The Hezbollah and groups like that.
They want to open up that area because if that crossing was opened up and under the control of the Syrian government, they can get their route to Iraq much better, but also to Iran. And I think that's the deal breaker for the U.S. And then in the U.S., it's got this kind of schizophrenic attitude to the region where they're backing Iranian militia inside Iraq, but then they want to bomb them inside Syria. I mean, these are not only are they the same types of people. For example, in Aleppo, I'm pretty sure they were the same people. Iraq sent the Iranian-backed militias back into Syria, and so I'm trying to keep an eye on where that's headed, and I think it says something that Saudi Arabia is signing this kind of coalition where they want to involve themselves militarily and things. So that's what I'll be focusing on. But at the same time, I mean, there's so much to keep up with. I'm not sure. I mean, the North Korea thing has kind of gone from the news for a little bit, but who knows? Before tomorrow it could be up again, and then we've got. In terms of the terrorist attack in Manchester, well, if it is a terrorist attack, I assume it sounds terrible to me. So like what you said, the important thing for me, I'm not too concerned with details of one lone attacker. I'm assuming it was a guy, a lone attacker, probably trained, or maybe even probably the authorities were aware of him, but it's the narrative that comes after it. Like, what does Theresa May say? I mean, I don't trust her. She came out at the start of the year saying all this stuff about Iran and then cozying up to Trump to get NATO funding, NATO backing, I mean. So what comes after that? I mean, as soon as I saw that attack, that's, I know more of the things we don't like heading our way, whether it's a loss of liberties or more sort of aggressive war stance. Like I've reported, it hasn't been published yet, but since the UK joined the Syria campaign, they've only launched 92 strikes out of, I mean, it's basically 1%, and the US accounts for about 95%. So maybe the UK will say, oh, you know what, we need to beef up our operation in Syria. But it also makes me wonder, what is the goal in Syria if you're only launching 92 strikes within a 2-year period. It sounds to me like, I mean, why is everyone so concerned with bombing this country? No one seems to care about the people. So I'll be keeping an eye on Syria and those kind of developments, but I'm not too sure of the rest of Asia and the rest of the Middle East. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
You know, last I checked, there was about 70 different countries involved in bombing or backing the operation of bombing Syria. So, I mean, this is the global, you know, World War III, if we can call it that. It's happening right now in Syria, but it's like a phony war. It's a proxy war. It's like there's no big countries are fighting directly against each other, but it's kind of, they're all fighting, vying for their own interests and stuff. And of course, the U.S. is, and I guess another part of this alternate reality, you know, the United States is aligned with ISIS in Syria, even though our whole justification for being in Syria is to fight against ISIS. And so it's just part of this alternate reality that we have going on. And this isn't new. I mean, this isn't, Trump ushered in this alternate reality in Syria. No, this has been going on with Obama. I mean, I think anyone can think back to 2013 where the United States tried to garner the public support to start up a war and just go and topple the Syrian government. The people here in the U.S. said no. And thankfully, you know, we were part of that movement. In fact, we were spearheading that movement. And the people here said no. And it was only a few months later where it's like, oh, well, okay, you know, we don't got to go fight the Syrian government, but ISIS is now the one that's over there in Syria, so we got to go over there anyway. And then people are, oh, well, if it's against terrorism, yeah, that's fine. You know, and so, you know, that wound up happening. Now, here's one point I wanted to make, and this again, alternate reality shit going on, which is so frustrating. You know, the media didn't cover this much, but the U.S. bombed the Syrian army and its allies. Darius was talking about this advance that they're making over in an area in Syria where they're trying to establish, I guess, a supply route or something like that. The U.S. bombed the Syrian army, but the United States said it did it out of self-defense. Now, this is what I find very, very strange, because the United States has established a training base in Syria. We're inside of Syria. And somehow the U.S. said it bombed the Syrian government out of self-defense. How does that work? Like, if I broke into somebody's house, right? I go into someone's house and I go to steal their shit. And a guy comes out with a gun the guy that lives there, he comes out with a gun and says, I'm going to shoot you if you don't leave my house. Well, if I shoot him first and say, oh, well, I did it out of self-defense, the guy was going to kill me. Sure, I was in his house and I was going to steal his shit, but I was defending myself. Like, is that the kind of case that would hold up in court? I don't think so. Like, I don't understand how the United States can go into Syria, establish a military base inside of Syria, and then say, hey, we can't allow the Syrian army to come in near our position. We have to defend ourselves. How does that work? Like, blows my mind. Like, it is a practice of mental gymnastics to make that reality. And the media just gobbled it up. It's like, oh, U.S. defends itself from advancing, you know, Syrian troops. It's like, wait, how are we defending ourselves from the Syrian army when we're in Syria? How does that make any sense?
I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing, but call it a reality, cause there's no illusion.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.